So, so good afternoon. So today is extra class, I think, because tomorrow uh, some, I think, only assignment lectures will be there. And yeah, so we continue from previous class. I think previous class, I think what we did in the evaluation of these equations, I think we are struggling that how this output energy is conserved. For example, when this entire thing is coming as zero, then it would be 2 times intensity. So actually, I think no one noticed that there was intentional some error mistake was there or introduced, and if you just carefully evaluate, I think you will get because once you go for intensity, that means if 2 times intensity, 1 by 2, 1 by 2, that will become 1 by 4. So that is how it is coming E input square. So that is how maximum energy should not exceed whatever the input is coming forward. This is not exactly what we know for regular interference, where normally some point you will get your intensity higher, and some places intensity will be completely zero. That is a spatial interference you will be getting. But in this case, we don't see spatial interference. Actually, whatever power we get in the output just at the output of this beam splitter here, that is actually everywhere. As you propagate, anywhere you put a detector along the line of the output, you will get same intensity basically, because this intensity depends on your power, that path length difference between this L1 and L2. Okay, so whatever coming out here, that is actually interference between these two beams coming out after reflection from the mirror. But next question is that for a certain delta L, you will get output is 0, because this can be pi by 2. So when it is 0, where that power is going? Because in spatial fringe, spatial interference, if you see the two beams coming, dark, bright, it will be coming. But here, if it is coming bright, it is bright always, all the time. And if it is dark, all the time dark. So when it is dark, that means 0. That means where power is coming? Our input is coming from here, right? Yes. Background noise. Are you seeing some background noise?
I don't know, sir. Like, is it only my case? Maybe my device or something.
So
I'm not
others,
sure. That's why
others,
I was asking.
Yeah,
others also.
there's some distortion in the audio.
Oh, really?
Ah, yes, yes.
Uh-huh. So I don't know. Let me see. Is this clear now? Can you hear smoothly?
Still slightly there, sir.
Oh,
But I think it's good, decreased now. Now I think it
yeah.
was
Okay. I
decreased.
think maybe there is
It's
a.
better, sir, now.
Yeah, now
Yeah.
it's
Like,
better.
better than before.
Okay. Fine. So thing is that my question is, anyone can answer that when certain path length difference is there, so the output you are getting 0. Where the energy going then? 0 means all the way, anywhere if you put detector at the output, it will be 0. So that time where energy goes?
It goes back to the input channel.
Yes, it will go back to the source basically. So entire thing as if it is reflecting in that particular condition, it will go to the source. So that is, though it is a problem for the source, but some way you can put some circulator, you can take it out if that situation is coming. But normally, most of the time, this type of interferometer works with a very weak light intensity. So normally that back reflection will not disturb your source. So fine. so far it is understandable that how the interference you will be getting, interference fringes we are getting. And this interference, when we are considering that omega is equal to, it's a monochromatic, perfect monochromatic things, and the phase is actually alone actually decided by the path length difference. Now we discussed this thing that I think we reached up to that that equation 230, right? 230 slightly modified now. You can note down whatever I have discussed last time, it's slightly modified, but the same equation is same. So this equation result because you don't get ideal monochromatic source. Normally there are certain spreading will be there around the peak frequency, even if it is a very high quality laser source, you will be getting that. So why that comes? I think that comes because of the noise, phase noise in the source itself. Or you can think that suppose normally we say that it's a stimulated emission, but you know the stimulated emission also it is not a instantaneous process. I mean to say that if you have some if you are just considering a laser system, if you know that normally excited state atoms will be there, and if there is a photon, and that photon will induce that excited electron or excited atomic state to come down to ground state, and the photon will be emitted. But that coming down, if you have some kind, suppose you have a n number of atoms at excited states, the stimulated emission process actually it will not come, it will not occur at once. So it may take little time. Suppose if it is 100 atoms are excited state or population inversion, so-called population inversion is there, then normally the decay from the excited states to ground state, it is normally most of the time we see that is actually exponential. So that means all the atoms will not, even though all of them are at excited state, all of them will not be de-excited at once. So there is a time lag. That time lag actually causes some kind of phase difference between the photons. And that phase difference, whenever it is emitting, that actually is slightly time dependent actually. Okay. So that time dependency is actually, you know, the phase, if it is time dependent, normally it is kind of phase modulation, and phase modulation in turn give your certain kind of frequency component around your center frequency will occur. So that is how delta omega comes. And this delta omega comes means then, as we discussed here, that if you have a different frequency component, you can find for a certain L1 and L2, suppose omega not giving you your constructive interference, but neighboring frequency components, they may be destructive. So in that case, if it is depending on the delta omega, you may find that here the contrast or maybe strength of the constructive interference or destructive interference, that is going to be changed. So that is how, if delta omega present, you may not get all the time the interference fringe or maximum brightness and darkness for all path length difference L1 minus L2. For that, what we introduce, we actually basically it is a kind of figure of merits for the source. That is called so-called first order correlation function. And that first order correlation function, why it is function? The parameter we are defining, that is a function of tau. What is this tau? Tau means we are just defining that suppose one beam going here and coming back, another beam going here and coming back. And what is their delay? If for example, here one beam 50% goes here and 50% goes here, they may not come back to the beam splitter again at the same time because of the path length difference. So that path length difference, if you convert back into time scale, that is actually tau. So we quantify a value of so-called G, and we say that superscript 1, that is called first order correlation function, and that first order correlation function must be depending on your tau. That means time of flight difference. How that is defined? You see, if you just look this expression carefully, that in the numerator, at time t, whatever the field you are getting, and another field obviously at the same time instant, if you see from the other path, that may be coming after tau time difference. That means whatever field was generated earlier, tau time earlier, that you are superimposing on this, okay, overlapping on this. Why you are taking overlap, not addition? I will come to that point a little while later. You have to see what is their correlation, because this is the correlation function is detected by your detector, photo detector. Two fields are coming, but one field is delayed. But if it is delayed, then question you may ask that why it should not be plus. Actually, it should be plus, but the actual figure of merits we quantify like that. What is the overlap? That will be clear in course of time. But here what you see, you have to take an average of this one. That means you have to integrate this overlap over a time t. Tau is a fixed. For a fixed tau means fixed path length difference. For a fixed path length difference, you are just integrating over a large time. At least that time should be larger than the frequency of the signal. Many times of that time, sufficiently large you should consider. At least 5 times more than 5 times, 30 times more than your frequency of the signal. And that is what we have expressed here. And it has been normalized with this function. You see, ET square mode. That means it is the power consisting of corresponding to field 1 reaching at t, and this is the power corresponding to field 2 reaching with a delay tau. And you are taking power, and then because it has to be somehow dimensionless, so square root you make. And this square root, how it will be coming also, it will be clearer a little while later. So this is the parameter. If you can compute, this is the average. Here also average over time. So ultimately this thing 230 will be a function of tau. So that function of tau is called as a first order correlation function. You can just easily see that if tau equal to 0, that this means 1s. This function will become 1. Okay. So if this function is 1, that means that is the best thing. That is tau 0 means it is whatever frequency coming here, because they are not delayed anymore. So you will be getting maximum value. Okay. Up to this point we discussed in the previous class. Now,
Sir, about temporal coherence, I had a doubt.
yeah.
As in, we said that it has got its origins in the vacuum fluctuations, right? So,
Yeah.
but then still we have this concept of coherence length. How is that the case? Shouldn't it be the same at all points?
Yeah, I'm just coming to that point basically. It is not exactly because of the vacuum fluctuation. There are many processes can happen in the lasers. So whatever way it comes, you will see some kind of spectral broadening of the laser source. It is not definitely a monochromatic source. Is that correct? So if it is not monochromatic, qualitatively we understand that interference corresponding to a particular frequency, the condition may not satisfy to the other frequency. That is the thing. Now that if you just analyze laser, you will be getting all those frequency components. Source is, it can be vacuum fluctuation, it can be collision, it can be defects in the if it is solid state laser, there must be some defects or different point if it is emitting, and there itself it has some surrounding impact will be there, that's why phase will be different. Okay, so that thing actually is an inherent property of the laser source. Okay, now that inherent property, if it is coming, that actually will affect your interference fringe. And that actually it will be clearer today's class, what you are asking. It is coherence length, it's characterized for laser source, not the instrument. Instrument actually will work for, if a certain coherence length is there, instrument will work if your path length difference is less than that coherence length. So this figure of merit is not depends on your instrument. It is the figure of merits for the source. Is that correct? Is this clear, right?
Sir, could you just repeat the difference between the instrument and the source? I am getting a little bit
You
confused.
see, instrument, what is our instrument here? This is a beam splitter, and this is the mirror, and this is mirror, and they are separated by a length L1, L2. So this is your instrument, right? And you have a source here. This is your input to the instrument, and this is your output to the instrument. Clear? Now this output value here, what I have calculated here for a given frequency omega. And for a given frequency omega, we know that the depending on the delta L, if you vary delta L, you can get perfect bright light, and for a certain other delta L, it will become 0, dark, right? And that is actually, that will continue whatever length you choose. It will be periodically, if your delta L is varied from 0 to infinity, your that maxima minima will come again and again with an equal brightness and darkness. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So if it is a single frequency, no doubt about it. According to this theory, this is clear. Now
Yes,
I am saying that suppose your source is a problematic source. It is not a monochromatic. It has some inherent property, phase fluctuations or whatever reason is there, you are getting with a delta omega width. You have a peak frequency, around that some bandwidth will be there. So that bandwidth actually is a problem, because you will not be able to use this omega anymore. Because all the omega you have to consider. One omega, if you are getting maximum, another omega, this value if you calculate, it may not be 0 or 2 pi. So it's some other value. So one frequency component you are getting constructive interference, and another frequency component, because it has a bandwidth, it may be giving lower. So now our question is that if your bandwidth is certain value is there, so certain value is there, meaning that means just 2 or 3 very narrow, little bit wider frequency does not mean your fringe will be completely vanished. If the frequency component is very close by, so you will be seeing that, okay, little bit phase difference. One is maybe coming with a 2 pi phase shift, another maybe 2 pi plus delta. That delta is so small that in spite of that you can get a bright spot. So little bit it will be faded, but you can see bright, dark. Dark may not be completely dark, little bit DC level will be there, if very narrow line width. But when this delta omega is very large, broad, then that when it's supposed to be completely dark for a certain delta L, it may not happen. Some DC value is still always will be there. Okay, so that means that type of situation I am discussing, considering your source is not monochromatic. So it is characterized to source, right? So for that source, if I am trying to define the first order coherence length or first order coherence function, or correlation function or coherence length, that is actually defined for the laser source, light source itself. Instrument is the interferometer, whether this interferometer is suitable for creating interference pattern or not for a given source, right? Up to this point it is clear. Whatever I am saying, it is understandable, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now next move. I think whatever curiosity is there, I think it will be clear probably in course of time. So now I am just defining this one, because Now this tau, different time when it comes, if there is a delay, right? If a delayed signal comes, suppose this signal and this signal, they are coming with the same phase all the time, even after delayed, but it is source from the same point, same single frequency, then should not be a problem. But when it is delayed, you know, because of the delay, there is a some, because when I say that frequency component variation, that is happening because some kind of phase fluctuation is happening. That phase fluctuation contributes to this frequency. This frequency component arises because of the just kind of source is fluctuating. That means it is not really coherent. Coherent means always all the photons will be coming out with same phase, but that phase is disturbed now. Because it is disturbed, so you are losing the coherency. So you, because of the phase modulation, phase variation in course of time, it's kind of frequency modulation will occur. So it is common in communication system. Whenever phase modulation, it is the time varying phase is there, that means some frequency modulation will come. So now I am trying to see that one path is coming at t, another path is coming by delayed time t. If there is a phase mismatch is there, right, between these two, then there will be some kind of figure of merit I can calculate that will characterize your source basically. Now you see, it will be more clear because I have given more example here. You know, now you see, this is two. I can consider this electric field is complex, right? So this is also complex. It can have phase. Phase is there means e to the power j phi complex is there. Now you know that from the just complex algebra, you know, if two complex number is there, if you just take complex conjugate and multiply with another complex number, right, then this relationship holds. That relationship is famously called as a Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. You can just use any two complex number, a plus jb plus and another one c plus jd, something like that, and then if you just compute this one, it will be always, it can be shown that this thing, if you just multiply and then take average mode, that will be always less than or equal to when you are taking individually of them. This is multiplication, and this is individually you are taking their mode and then multiplication, then that will be always greater than this one. That is actually from the complex algebra, you can prove yourself. I'm not going into that details. So if this is the case, 232, if you see, so we can clearly say that numerator is either equal to this one or less than denominator. So that means your this function, whatever tau value is there, this function, first order correlation function, is less than or equal to 1. So that is coming directly from Cauchy-Schwarz inequality. So we have just written down that for all values of tau greater than or equal to 0. So this is going to happen. We know that maximum value can be 1, and when if it is 1, that is a perfect source. That is a perfectly coherent source, and you can use your interferometer for any path length difference. It will work anywhere. You don't need to adjust. You don't need to limit your path length. Okay. Now come to this point. Let us try to explain the origin of the first order degree of coherence. Okay, where from this is coming, it will be clearer a little bit later if we just consider like this. Let us go for a quasi-monochromatic source. Quasi-monochromatic source means the electric field you can define like that. You have a frequency is there, main frequency, peak frequency omega naught, supposed to be oscillating, but you have also phase is there, that is time dependent phase is there. Whatever it is generating, that will be actually a little bit fluctuating over time. They will not be in same phase. So that's why the time dependent phase I just, you have to add here omega 0 t plus phi t. So that is what I am just factoring here, I am writing here. So that means your field is all the time, if you see at a particular specific time, particular phase. Along with that, your oscillating function is there. So this is your source. Quasi-monochromatic we are considering. Quasi-monochromatic means you have this frequency and you have some time dependent phase modulation is there. Phase variation is there. That is a phase noise, you can say. So same thing if I try what is happening after a certain time, tau, E t plus tau, tau is given time. That tau means I am just referring that if I have a 2 beam is coming, 1 beam is coming delayed because of path length difference. Okay, so what I will see? Just t will be replaced by t plus tau. So these two things are there. So I am just representing in terms of phase now. Frequency, just peak frequency I am putting, oscillating frequency, and along with that, this thing. If phase is always constant, then I think it is just a time evolved phase, it will be coming, you will be getting. Just delayed means time evolved, t will be there, but this part will not be there. Phi part will be always same. It is a constant part, we can ignore that one. Okay. Normally omega t terms, it will be coming, that is as usual. Now you substitute this to in equation here. Here you are just putting. So what would be the value of denominator, by the way? Can tell anyone? If you are just substituting this and this in denominator, what would be the value?
Epsilon naught.
Epsilon E. That E naught square. Isn't it? E naught?
Under root E naught square.
So E naught. So no, here also E naught square, E naught square. So E naught 4. So E naught square will be there. No? This is also square is there. So E naught square. That means it's basically E naught square. And numerator, what you will get? Numerator, you will be getting also E naught square. Right? Here E naught is there, here E naught is there. E naught square, numerator, denominator cancelled. And you see, you have this function and complex conjugate of this one. Which one complex conjugate? First one is complex, okay. So that means this one will be j omega naught t and minus j phi t. And you are just multiplying this one. So what you will get? You will get e to the power minus j omega naught and this phi difference will be there. Omega naught tau, because omega naught t and omega naught t will be cancelled. So left over will be minus j omega naught tau. That is what I have kept. And you will have this phase, minus sign will be there, minus sign I have kept. And this one, because it is a complex conjugate. So within the average, because it is, when I am taking average, that is average over t. But tau is a fixed value for the instrument, right? So I put down outside. Okay, because that nothing to do with averaging here. So this is the actual function. Because E naught square will be cancelled, and then here nothing will be there, only E naught square. So ultimately this function, whatever I have defined, that will be coming down to like this. Is that clear? Now you see situation. This G1 tau, if you see this particular function, whatever I defined, it oscillates as a function of tau. If you see the real part, it's a cosine function. That means as a function of tau, it will be oscillating. That is what our interference we have seen earlier, right? Tau means path length difference, time difference. So this one will be oscillating. And along with that, that period will be 2 pi by omega naught for sure. This tau. So depending on that, that will be oscillating. The rapid oscillatory variation produces the fringe pattern in an interference experiment. So because of this, actually we know that some interference will be there. That means whatever the interference you will be getting, that depends on this one. This is the oscillatory function. Along with that, this function coming. You know, if all the time it would be coming with the same phase, this part would be 0, that e to the power 0 will be 1, so it will be just oscillatory, only function of tau. That is what we have expressed earlier in Michelson interferometer. But situation is not so simple. Normally I say that this phase variation contributes some frequency. Okay, so most of the time, you know, nowadays modern laser sources, if you see, if it is somehow you have a population inversion is there, and if you try to see all the excited atoms when it is contributing to lasing, they normally most of the time they relaxed exponentially. That relax means come to the downstate exponentially. So that means for a certain point of time, if I see that all the atoms, and if I look them, how they are coming down, how they will be emitting laser or photons, that will be exponentially decaying. If your pump is stopped, for example, for some moment, some steady state population inversion is there, and then your pump cut for the laser, that means all this source cut, then what will happen? The laser will be, the light wave will be exponentially, it will be decaying. What does it mean? That means all the excited atoms are not coming at once immediately if you stop the pump. So that is the internal dynamics is there. So that means anything exponentially decaying, e to the power say minus alpha t, if you do Fourier transform, what will you get? For a time dependent exponential term, if you do Fourier transform, normally in frequency domain, what type of distribution you will get? Anyone can tell? Who can tell? Emmanuel? Exponential, time dependent exponential.
I don't know, sir.
You don't know? Anyone can tell? Gantashala? Gantashala, can you tell? E to the power minus alpha t. If you do Fourier transform, what will you get?
Sir, Gaussian?
No. Gaussian, you know, Fourier transform of a Gaussian distribution, you will be getting Gaussian. I am just asking exponential.
So exponential, you would have to do Laplace transform, right?
Yeah, you have to do. You have to do. Once you do what normally, I thought you have done such problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a complex exponential, you'll get a delta.
That's fine. But it is a just exponential decaying term is there. That means you have to, what you have to do, e to the power minus alpha t, for example, right? And then you have to do e to the power j omega t minus j omega t if you have to multiply, and then you have to integrate over time, right?
Yes, sir.
And e to the power j omega t, you can just expand into cos and sine. And then you can just do integration, right? That is Fourier transform, right?
Yes, sir.
So normally this transform is Lorentzian shape. If it is exponential, most of the time our laser spectrum nowadays, if you say very good quality laser spectrum comes out, even today available, their shape is Lorentzian shape. Because this exponential things follows. It depends on internal mechanism. It sometimes also come out like a Gaussian also. But most of the time, the line shape of the laser source, most of the time it is a Lorentzian. Lorentzian shape is something like that. If you do that Fourier transform, you will be getting this expression, frequency domain.
Sir, it is going to have imaginary part as well, right? So
yeah, I think it is just absolute value you are taking. That's true. Imaginary part will be there, but you are taking absolute value. Spectral density you are taking. That means you have to take complex. This is, I should say that this is whatever you will be getting complex conjugate if you take, and then multiply, and then the absolute value. This is what the absolute value you will be getting, frequency dependent. Fine. So what does it mean when you are putting omega equal to, omega is a variable and omega naught is your that actual frequency. You are using that Fourier transform, you are using a big frequency, it will be there. So when omega equal to omega naught, what would be the spectral density here? 235. If omega equal to omega naught, what would be the value?
1.
1. That means it is a normalized. Yeah. Maximum will be 1. So if you are just deviating from omega naught, then it sharply it will fall. That is actually Lorentzian shape. I don't have picture here, but you can find Lorentzian shape means it will be sharply falling as you go away from the peak. So this is the normal, typical good quality laser source. If you see, they will be like a Lorentzian. Now from here, if I ask you to find out what is the full width half maxima, that means you need a bandwidth where the spectral density falls to half. So that is exactly, if you just consider this one, that means if you consider, suppose at omega equal to omega 1, this value will become half. Then you solve it. Whatever you will get, 2 times of that will be bandwidth. That is actually gamma. So gamma is selected to find that gamma is the full width at half maxima. So if gamma is the full width at half maxima, we can just express the spectral density of a Lorentzian shape like this. Okay. Now, you see, we know that the above line shape is a direct consequence of time-dependent decay characteristics, Fourier transform. I mentioned that of an oscillator, which may be defined as this one. So that means this. What I mean to say in a reverse way, if you have a Lorentzian spectral things, then time-dependent Fourier transform thing, if you see, that will be just exponential decaying. I am just considering time dependent because normally any laser, I can't see this, what is the time exponential things I can't see. I can measure the spectral, using a optical spectrum analyzer, I can see the spectral density. This much I can get. And from there, we can get what would be the decay as a function of time, exponential thing I can get like this. So that means this Fourier transform of this, I can write like this. Okay, and normally for a Lorentzian shape, it will be e to the power minus tau by tau c, right? Tau c means 1 by gamma I am putting here. And this thing, this time tau c is coming because of these phase fluctuations, phase variations. So this particular thing, if we evaluate, average it, if we know the phase information as a function of time, that phase information is a direct consequence of this Lorentzian shape, and Lorentzian shape means exponential decay. So we can just use this one like this, in this form. So this variation will be a characteristics of the FWHM basically, or spectral bandwidth. That spectral bandwidth, if we relate with the normal Fourier transform relationship, we can write that e to the power minus tau by tau c. So that means entire phase fluctuation I am characterizing by tau c or gamma. Here is also tau is there and tau is there. So time dependent part, whatever you get, you will be getting this expression. So if so, then tau c is equal to 1 by gamma. This thing, you just substitute this part with this one. Then what you get? This equation, if you just put, you are getting G1 like this. That means this first order correlation function is basically exponentially decaying over tau, right? So here this t, I'm just using here tau because we are using this tau delay. This tau delay among the frequencies coming, and that would be affected only if there is a path length difference is there in the instrument, right? So we have, depending on the tau, this tau variation, whatever I am just using for one frequency, another frequency will be actually adjusted accordingly. So our first order correlation function will be expressed by this one, if I just express like this. Okay, and if you, instead of Lorentzian shape, if it is a Gaussian function, then that will be, I think you can also do for a Gaussian function similar way. If you just modify, then you can get the correlation function will be like this, where in this case this tau c will be there, tau c for Lorentzian shape, tau c is equal to 1 by gamma in this expression, and here tau c is equal to, here again this gamma also we are expressing for Gaussian also full width half maxima, but tau c will be defined by like this. Can be you can solve also. I think you can take this as a home assignment. Just if you have a Gaussian profile, then what would be the Fourier transform? Whatever the Fourier transform will be there, you will be just multiplying with this one. That Fourier transform is nothing but this one, average of this one. That you can write. So you just put down, you can get this one, right? So now we understand that this correlation function is, we just conclude that this correlation function, first order correlation function, that actually decides the interference contrast, because that how that is varying as a function of tau. Tau means path length difference. Then that actually qualify the gives the figure of merit of the source. For example, if you consider tau equal to 0, that means there is no path length difference. Even though there is a tau is there, your inherent source is there, and I don't mind that my laser path instrument path length difference is such that time of flight difference is 0. I am putting same L1 equal to L2. Then I will be getting oscillating like this tau dependent, whatever things is there, tau equal to 0, this will be oscillating. But as tau is changing, then it will be oscillating, but it will be decaying also, exponentially decaying. Similarly, for Gaussian spectral things, it will be also in a Gaussian way, it will be decaying. I'll come to that point again. Now little bit different aspect you look. Let us go back to this thing here. This output here, I'm just looking. What I did here field 1, this component, right? Whatever coming here, and another one, this one I consider here, right? And I consider L1, L2, and both cases I consider K, because their frequency is same. When they are delayed coming, their frequency and phase, everything is same. That's why I'm just considering like this. But now I cannot consider the same K for both the term, because you have a bandwidth. Tau delay means you can get your interference actually disturbed. So what do? You use in terms of T instead of path length difference. I'm just putting one component coming as E tau, ET, and another is delayed. And here I have introduced minus sign. This minus sign, why I have put here, because this 2 delta term, normally in this system, this beam splitter, the nature of the beam splitter, normally it gives you minus sign. It is not that always you will be getting minus sign, but for this half silver mirror, always you will be getting pi. So that's why normally if you see the textbook, they will be putting minus. But we will see in our integrated photonics waveguide system that it may not be minus, it can be pi by 2 also. Okay, so all these we'll discuss later, but sometimes some beam splitter you are using and the pi by 2, another beam splitter will be giving pi by 2, so totally it will become pi also. So typically most of the cases that this 2 beam will come with a phase difference of pi. That's why I put minus sign. But why I put 1 by root 2 instead of 1 by 2? Can anyone tell? Earlier we justified that. You remember that we justified this 1 by 2 how? Because one time it is going 1 by root 2 and then coming back another 1 by root 2. That is how 1 by 2 coming. Here also passing 1 by root 2, coming back again 1 by root 2. That's why 1 by 2 we are putting. But here we are just considering 1 by root 2 only. Because this is intentionally put to see that if I just normalize it for tau equal to 0, if I just normalize it, then it should be 1 basically. That this thing and this thing, whatever value coming, so normally it should come like a E naught square. This 1 by root 2 term, first 1 by root 2 I have just removed from the both the part. I think it's a just a generalization. I have not used that first 1 by root 2 part here. Whatever going 1 by root 2, that is removed. I'm just considering, okay, 1 by root 2 coming and 1 by root 2 coming. I just whatever after division, when they are joining again, that thing I'm considering in that function, nothing else. Okay, so that I can get ultimately a normalized output for your photodetector. Now you see, that means I am just adding the amplitude of the electric field at T and whatever coming after tau, but with a pi phase shift also. Right? Now if I try to get our intensity, what I will get? I'll get intensity means this I have to take complex conjugate and multiply. Right? That means E output T star, and then I have to take E output T plus tau, whatever I'm getting. Right? You see, my photodetector, I'll be getting this one. Two field is coming. I am explaining here why this G is important here. G is defined like that. Why this correlation function we defined like that. That is I am trying to explain now. Okay. So suppose you have this thing and I want to see the intensity as a function of tau. Because intensity at the output, it actually, you are taking average, right? So it has to be tau dependent. Time average will be taken, right? Intensity means I have to take time average, because all the frequency detector cannot be seen, that those frequency. So you have to see the time average. And if you take time average, that means I have to take I have to take this one, and you have to take complex conjugate and then multiply. Right? So that I tau, I can write here. If you just take complex conjugate and multiply, then it will be coming like this. This form. Okay. So once you get that, you see basically this star, this one, and then you multiply with a star of this one, complex conjugate of this one. Then you get E star and E star T plus tau and E, and then AB minus, that's like a plus B, A minus B, the way you multiply, same way you are multiplying, then you can get. I think do one more step I missed here, you can try, and you will get this one. And then ultimately you will see that because of the complex conjugate, two terms complex conjugate will be there. One term will be there complex, and another term will be its complex conjugate. So in that case, you see, normally if I have A minus A plus IB, and then if you add with A plus IB and you add A minus IB, so what you will get? You will get only real part. So that is what I will be just writing here. You just multiply this, you will be getting just one step forward. It's not so difficult. And then if you take this one common, this part, then what you will be getting? One will be there, and this one will be there, and this part will be divided by this one, divided by this one. That is how we write G, right? This average of this one and normalized by this one. So whatever I have written in that expression, you remember? This one, square root means square and then square root come. Square and square root come. This one divided by this one. So basically, whatever expression I am getting here, that is nothing but I am just, whatever I am observing in my photodetector, the field, this field, superposition of that. And if you just do superposition, I get one function exactly defined, one parameter I get exactly defined earlier by the first order correlation function, right? And this one, you know what? This is nothing but I naught. So this 1 by root 2 I put here so that I get I naught, actual intensity, total intensity from the two beam meeting to your photodetector. That's why 1 by root 2 if I put, then only I can actually forget its previous 1 by root 2 things, whatever launched. So I naught I'll be getting, and then this function is there. Now you see, in my photodetector, I'll be getting tau dependent. I tau intensity is tau dependent, and in this case, that will be proportional to I naught 1 minus this one. Obviously, you see that this g tau is a function of tau. This value vary with a tau because it is exponential decaying, or this function is there. So if I try to, depending on the tau, if you vary tau value, this I can go maxima to minima, right? Vary tau, depending on the g function, I can see maxima and minima. So that maxima minima, whenever I am changing tau, I can actually find the maxima and minima. Now this maxima to minima, if it is recorded in your photodetector, so suppose to path length I am just changing, and I can calculate corresponding tau value. Then I can find what it is going maxima and then coming back to minima. So this I max and I minus I minima, and then if you add this one from this function, if you just do, maxima will be how much? I naught, and minima will be how much? This can be whatever value it will be there, that value will be there. So if you subtract, it will be just g. So this visibility, actually, that means maxima to minima, maximum contrast. Sometimes people mislead it to call it as a contrast, but this is actually visibility. That visibility actually defined by this function g. That means correlation function. So if you know the correlation function, then you can find what the tau value supposed to be, so that you can get sufficient visibility. Okay, if this g is close to 1, that means that is fine. Tau you choose such that this value is becoming close to 1. That means close to 1 means I minimum is 0. Right? That means I max by I max, it will be 1. So then it is a good source. Here some example is given here. You see, if you have a tau means this delay, time delay, if you vary, that means this visibility, if you just try to measure, visibility means actually real part of this correlation function. That you see, it goes maxima to minima it goes, and as tau increases, that will be this contrast is reducing, and finally it will be vanished completely. No interference pattern will be observed afterwards. Because why it is maxima to minima will be there? Because this value can be plus, it can vary from plus to minus, this correlation function. Plus to minus it can vary. So when plus to minus vary, then it will be maxima to minima, it will happen. Okay. So that is actually why I have discussed here. If you have a monochromatic source, classically if you want to see, if you have some kind of line shape is there for the source, so called, we'll be discussing that laser source is a Poissonian source, and that has a particular line width, and that because of that line width, actually you can you cannot use that source for any interferometer having a arbitrary path length difference. It is actually defined by its line width. Okay, so that means delta omega, line width. If delta omega is small, that means your path length can be very large. You don't need to bother about any length you put, then you can see the interference. But if delta omega is very large, normally you have to be careful that their path length difference should not be very large, very small. At least tau should be as small as possible. Path length flight of difference actually. Now another type of, I think, have you seen this type of sketch anytime? Anyone? You see,
Yes, sir.
you have a source, beam splitter, 50% goes here, 50% comes here, and again here is a mirror completely reflecting, and another beam splitter. So what is it called? It is also interferometer, is not it? Splitting and it interfering. What is the difference with this type of interferometer to that whatever we have discussed in Michelson interferometer?
For one beam splitter, it'll only pass through it once.
Yeah. So here you see that Michelson interferometer, the beam goes and comes back again in the same path, and here goes and comes back in the same path. So instead of that, what it is done, this mirror, this you put instead of 90 degree, you just put 45 degrees. So it divert this direction. And this also you divert in this direction, 45 degree. And then goes to beams directly here. Then here also again, and you put one more beam splitter, right? So that is the only difference, that the path you are not folding back. The path you are folding here, and there you are not folding, you are just directing to a common place, and you are interfering them in another beam splitter. And the result is phenomenal. Actually, very interesting thing. What you will see here, because it is a beam splitter, mirror you are diverting here, instead of reflecting back this direction, you are just diverting here and beam splitter here. So since it is a beam splitter, what will happen? The beam here coming here, it will 50% goes here and 50% comes there. And beams comes here, it also goes 50% here and 50% here. So you can expect interference here as well as here also. You have two ports, output ports, one input ports, and you have two output ports. So the difference is that you are getting here, whenever you are getting maximum here you will be getting minimum. And when here you are getting minimum in the blue color, blue or green, yeah. Here, whenever you are getting maximum, the yellow color here you will be getting minimum, or here maximum, there minimum. That means nothing is going back to your source. In earlier setup, what you have? You have the, when you are getting maximum here or minimum here, so entire light is reflecting back. But there, what is happening? It will appear in another port. Okay. Why I am showing here? Here also you have path length differences there. Here also same. What is the path length difference? Same way like a Michelson interferometer will be using what is the path length difference required to get effective interference. And you know, all these interference we have just considered here, that is a classical electromagnetic wave, how they are actually, how you can design their interference pattern. But normally, you know, this type of things will be amazingly interesting when you consider that instead of a classical electromagnetic beam, if it is a single photon, what would happen here? Just one photon coming, but you know, classically this is a beam splitter. It's a classically beam splitter. Photon will go this direction or that direction. What is the answer? Anyone can tell?
So there's a 50-50 probability that it can go in either one.
So where will be the photon? Here or there?
It'll be in superposition of both.
Superposition of both. So that means it is. You cannot say that photon is divided.
No, you can't.
Either here or here will be there. If you detect here, will you be able to detect?
with 50% chance you can detect it.
50% chance you can detect here and 50% chance here detect here. But as long as you don't detect, you have to trust that photon actually taking both the path. As long as you are not detecting, you have to devise your math such that photon coexist in both the path. But once you put a detector, that means you are measuring that time. If it is detected at all, photon is there and other place is completely missing. So that thing also will be using that for whenever we are will be using a quantum photonics device with quantum states, we'll be using this type of structure basically to understand different type of manipulate different type of quantum states. But here this is showing as a Mach Zehnder interferometer in a just a free space mirror everything. But all these device we will be actually can be implemented in integrated circuit in a waveguide, and there will be analyzing this thing. So that's a, but thing is that all this beam splitter, mirror and photo detector, everything, whatever classical way we explain, that idea will be directly reflected in quantum domain. Quantum analogy will be applied and will be extracting their transfer function for quantum state manipulation. So this is called Mach Zehnder interferometer, and normally in integrated optics we don't, particularly photonic integrated circuit, we don't use that Michelson interferometer. Instead we use this Mach Zehnder interferometer. So this will be coming again and again in future. Okay. Any question for today?
So just like one small question. So
Yeah.
when we, I mean, it's sort of like a continuation to probably what we'll do later, but when you're taking the average of this epsilon of t and epsilon of t plus tau, is it the classical average or like an ensemble average, or is it like a quantum average?
No, it is classical. Whatever we discussed here, this is actually classical. Electric field we are using directly. Okay,
So
that's why this G1 is nothing to do with the quantum.
Okay. But if we had, say, a quantum state of light, then we'd have to take the electric field operators and then we'd have to do a quantum average.
Yeah.
Right?
So we will show that time instead of electric field, we will be using intensity.
Okay. Okay.
So for quantum interference, whenever we will be considering quantum state interference, that time we'll show that that operator we have to use, that A dagger A, all those operators we have to use, and then finally there this correlation, photon correlation will be measured by another parameter that is called G2.
Okay. Second order.
Second order correlation.
Right.
So so that because we'll be using that, I thought that we should explain a little bit in detail so that you should not be confused that why G2, because that time will be, instead of here we are using first order electric field. Electric field power is 1, E star E tau, and there will be, this will be square and this will be also square. So intensity will be there.
Okay.
Okay, that is why it will be called as a G2. So G2 parameter will be frequently used for quantum photonics correlation.
And
quantum state. Yeah.
And this delta omega line width that we get, so we would also have a spread of frequencies if we had, say, a laser pulse, right?
That is true. If it is a pulse of, you see, normally whenever you have this type of phase fluctuation is there, okay, so normally you will be getting some kind of frequency modulation. And pulse also, if you see, if you teach how fast you are doing that thing, all the frequencies will be coming, and that way you will be losing your that G correlation time, all those type of things will be coming. That's true. But here this pulsation, everything, it is not externally you are doing. It is just inherent to the laser source we are considering. If you externally modulate, that frequency component will be there. Whatever the frequency component will be there, that also will destroy your interference thing if you are taking time average.
Right.
That is true. Same
So
effect.
there the line, so the line shape will depend on what kind of a modulation you're doing,
Yes,
like the
yes,
shape of the
yes.
pulse.
Yes,
Okay.
very much, very much. So,
So will it-
normally, this, I think you are in physics department, right?
Yes, sir.
Physics department, you have femtosecond laser is there, na?
Right. Ultra fast lasers. Yeah.
Ultra fast laser. So the pulse width is very small. If you see in the spectrum analyzer, you will find that the frequency is a continuum.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually normal CW laser, if you are just somehow modulating with a very high pulse rate, then it will be just femtosecond. The pulse will be femtosecond. As you know that its pulse width is smaller, and Fourier transform, if you do that, frequency range will be large.
Right.
So that's true.
So, and like even like when we were using these in say dispersive media, then also like we see changes.
Yes. Dispersive medium also, you see that pulse spreading will be there, right? So that actually all this basically some kind of phase modulation happening as it passes through.
Right. Okay.
So that phase modulation, if it is if it is not a fixed, well-defined, some fluctuation is there, you will add some continuous frequency components.
Right. So in those cases, it won't be like a simple Lorentzian anymore. It'll
Yeah. It will be continuum, na? Super continuum. You see nowadays also available super continuum source. That is nothing but that femtosecond and autosecond pulses, all those type of things.
Okay.
And another thing is that this phi t, time dependent phase is changing. D phi by dt means omega, right? If you see rate of change of phase, basically your frequency shift you will be getting. How much frequency shift will be there you will be getting. Any continuous wave, single frequency, if it is emitting from the laser, if you do some certain kind of phase modulation, you will add some frequency components,
Right.
depending on the period, etc. If it is well defined, you will be getting. Otherwise, stochastic, then you have to take this type of averaging. Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Sir, is it possible to extend the assignment submission to Thursday?
Why? You have
Didn't complete, sir. Yeah. But then many assignments turned up together.
Yeah, I think okay. I think 20. I think thought of that. If you submit, then it can be discussed.